Oh my God, we're live.
I think we are.
All right, well, let's do this, man. All right, well, welcome to the camera show. Here we are, Mike Morris.
Welcome. Yep,
How long have we been
this
planning
is
this?
it.
We've been talking since we met at Levi Allen's workshop. For
That's
what?
right.
When was that? Like 2 years ago?
I think so.
Coming up
Yeah,
on 2 years
something like
ago?
that. Yep.
And pretty much every
Yeah, and it's been
time. Oh, go ahead.
at least a solid year. Yeah, that we've been planning something.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been trying to do something, and what better time to start something than in a worldwide pandemic?
Yep.
So, as far as introductions go, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about your background, what you have been shooting, if you're up to anything now, and also, what kind of gear you're using, and that whole rundown.
Yeah. Well, started March 6, 1984. Well, maybe not that far. Yeah. Where do I start? I don't know. Yeah, I'm running a small production with my wife called Fever Creative. On the side of that, I just started to work as a freelance DP. And yeah, I've been shooting all kinds of things from, like everybody, starting with DSLR. And well, starting with tape first, but then, yeah, DSLR. And yeah, then I switched to the C300 Mark II about a year ago. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And in between, I've been testing all kinds of. Every time something new comes up in the mirrorless world, and DSLR too.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly Canon, I would say. Yeah, but yeah, GH5 too. A little bit of the Blackmagic.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So one thing that I think is interesting with your story is that you started in weddings, and I don't know walk me through a little bit of the process of realizing that you didn't want to do weddings anymore, because you were pretty, you were humming along and you were doing weddings on the regular, shooting videos, and from what I saw of your work on the wedding side of things, they were really nice. They were really beautiful weddings, the kind of work that certainly people would aspire to be doing in the wedding world. So walk me through your mindset on why that wasn't what you wanted to do going forward.
Well, definitely, just for my career in general, it's not where I wanted to go. For me, it always has been just a step forward. It was the fastest way when I started my production. It felt like it was the fastest way to get jobs and to get my foot at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I wanted, at the time at least, mostly working on documentary, and it felt like it was the easiest way to practice, to get clients, to get business going, and to do documentaries, because that's what it is, at
Right.
least the way I do it. So yeah, it was really as simple as that. We had a couple of friends getting married, and they called us, and yeah, they asked us if we wanted to film it, and that was it. That was the first gig, and we went from there. And it's always the same thing. What you start doing is what you become known for, and so you do one, and suddenly you do another one, and the ball starts rolling. But yeah, the ultimate goal always has been for me to make my own movies, rather it is narrative or documentary. It is still the end goal. Now I start to refine it and see myself more as a DP, eventually as a director, although I feel like it would take me another step to feel confident as a director, at least for the project I have in mind, outside of the short films we do with my wife. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking forward a little bit, what has made you kind of like comfortable moving into the role of a DP, and the process behind that? What have you done to prepare for that as well? Because I feel like that's a lot of that may be the end goal for a lot of people, even if they are just shooting with a DSLR or something like that.
Well, like anything else, you practice a lot until you feel confident enough, whether it is with clients or by yourself at home, with whatever you have. You study a lot. That's the way I do it. I watch and read everything I can about the particular topic I'm interested in, and I don't know, like I felt naturally that, well, first of all, before that I was a photographer, so I already had, I hope, a strong, strong knowledge about light and where it's coming from. I mean, the basics of, and really, a DP is a photographer in motion. I mean, it's the same job. It's framing and putting the light at the right place where you want your eyes to go. And I don't know. It just felt like it was the natural progression for me, and at least the part of the job that I enjoy the most. My least favorite part of the job is definitely producing, and yeah, my favorite, I think, is doing the frame and the lighting. Definitely.
Yeah, well, that gives a little nice segue to my background a little bit, at least. So I also started in photography. My dad was a photographer, and he was a landscape photographer, large format photographer, and so he would kind of like explain the rule of thirds and the stops, like the stop system, and camera mechanics. This was back when digital was not professional at this time. Digital was kind of just emerging as even a possible technology. And he had digital cameras, and would play around with them. And he even had a digital back for his 4x5 that took 10 minutes to scan and produce an image. But that's how I started, and kind of for a while really wanted to be a professional photographer. And then sort of started to realize that the more complete stories, it felt like you needed motion or other elements to be able to intersperse them to really create a story. I had a harder time with the more fragmented storytelling that photography did to tell the stories that I wanted to tell. So it was kind of doing portraiture as well as environmental, kind of more environmentally motivated work. And it really felt like learning video would be the way to get some of those stories told. So that was kind of the interest. And then I started working just as in marketing, and video was just like pivot to video was the, cliche catchphrase, but everybody realized that they needed to have video content. So it was also kind of a career move, because photography was something that you could just get off the shelf more and more, or shoot with your phone. Whereas there was a little bit more job security in creating video, because it is, no matter how much you try to simplify it, it is a more involved production. So that was kind of my entry point. And then after working in marketing, I did work as a producer / PA / project manager at a production company here in Portland for about 7 months, and really just learned the ins and outs of like small scale production. So obviously none of this was union work, but we were hiring DPs, we were hiring, gaffers. The largest job I think was about 30 people. So kind of, small to medium scale production, but kind of realized that the film industry, quote unquote, wasn't exactly where I wanted to settle. And more being an independent video creator was a little bit more what I had in mind for myself. Like I wanted to tell stories that were more personal to me and a little bit less commercial. And so that's obviously a much more nebulous path than the traditional kind of work as a PA and then hopefully work with a gaffer and then become a DP or something like that. But we'll see. I mean, I'm still on the early side of that process, but
they're still young.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But that's right now. I'm kind of thinking that that's a little bit more my sweet spot, especially right now where I'm also working in podcast production, and this is more of it's more than a hobby because I am doing video work on the side, but it's not my full-time career. So it allows me to kind of experiment a little bit more, and I like being able to experiment with different scales of things, different equipment. So yeah.
Did you, at the time where you were seeing yourself as a professional photographer, what was like your ideal goal at the time? What kind of photographer did you, picture yourself
That's
being? You know?
it was kind of like it was a mix between fine art and documentary, which I feel like is an emerging. It's becoming more and more of a possibility, but simultaneously the market value of that is decreasing. So it's like people are recognizing that as a thing more and more, but then I think still getting funding to be paid is a challenge. But I mean, there were a few, like there's this photographer / writer named Shubhankar Banerjee. He wrote articles, but then also photographed the pictures. He would create books. A lot of his work came from the academic background. Mikhail Subatsky, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's a South African photographer, and he had some amazing work, and he's a little bit more on the fine art side of things. He's like a multi-talented, he does like paintings and whatnot too. So he's definitely the fine art side of things, but he was doing documentary work on some of the social issues in South Africa. And so exhibiting in galleries, talking at probably like more academic kinds of things, potentially even teaching. That was kind of the way that that was the method that I envisioned for myself. And I mean, I showed my work to a professional photographer who kind of came and shared some of his work. And he said, like, I hope to be showing with you in galleries at some point. And that was really encouraging, but it just, I don't know. I graduated college and didn't want to pursue more college. And that was kind of like this culture. There was like this reinforcing culture where it seemed really possible. And then once I moved out of that environment, it just felt like there was no real structure to it. And I also found my interests shifting a little bit after pursuing that. Like that was one of my main projects throughout college. And I just wanted to experiment with more things too. So it was a little bit of like the marketplace became a little bit more challenging, and didn't really see a ton of possibility there, as well as shifting focuses.
Yeah, and I think for the people like us that are equally interested in, I mean, at least at the beginning, equally interested in photography and video or films, is that you pretty quickly realize that it's not incompatible. Mm-hmm. And that you can definitely work a series of photography on the side of working in production. And you kind of, I don't know if you had that same thought, but I remember thinking that I could totally do both. It was kind of like the sweet spot, because video or filmmaking could be the bread maker, and I could still work the pictures at the pace I wanted and only shoot what I wanted. Mm-hmm. and do exhibitions and all kinds of things at my own pace.
Yeah. I definitely thought that I could do, like for what I had in mind was more of like an academic, maybe academics and that would support photography, but then photography would also support the work I was doing in academics. And I do think that, I mean, that certainly is the way that some people do it. But I just, it was, I guess it was a mix of like not really fully believing that there was something to dive into there that made that kind of there was too much risk in that cloud, like that nebulous cloud of the future, where I just wasn't confident in jumping into it. Now, I think if you want to be a professional photographer, you just kind of have to like make, if I wanted to pursue that, I think there's a way forward. You may not make a lot of money, but if you're willing to pick up, PA jobs or, if you're willing to think loosely about the scope of work that is, I totally think there's a way forward. But obviously at this point, my desires have shifted a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, I still want to be shooting environmentally focused and kind of outdoor focused content with my video work. So has it really shifted that much? I guess the thrust of it has, but the general interest hasn't, or it has circled back around at the very least. So yeah,
it's all I want to do right now, shooting outside.
That's all anybody wants to do right now, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of,
all I can think of is doing time lapses and getting lost in the forest.
Yeah.
All the things I can't do, travel. And
I went on a hike yesterday to Forest Park and was trying to shoot some stuff. And there was I mean, the sun was out. It was beautiful, but there were so many people. And I was trying to also get like some nice audio scapes with the microphone. And everybody is just going crazy right now. So finding places that are a little more secluded is a challenge. But I liked I was just picking up kind of B-roll shots, and I liked what I was getting there. Well, I want to talk about something that you did recently about the opposite of that, which is Trapped, your submission to it was the Willamette Weekly Film Festival, correct?
Yes, it is. It was, I submitted first at the Board at Home film contest from Cinema 5D. And then I submitted to the Confinement Online Film Festival, which is made by Portland Mercury.
Oh, Portland Mercury. Okay.
Yes.
Nice. So walk me through. I mean, I know the production was pretty much shoot something in your house that's really short, but walk me through the production a little bit about that of shooting a production. Yeah. With basically just yourself in your house.
There. Yeah. Yeah. Me and my wife. Me and Jen. Yeah. Well, I was super bored, first of all. It was at the beginning of the quarantine. And Borderlands had a special where you could book a camera for a week and you had a second week offered. So it was like 2 weeks for 1 week. Which was incredibly cheap, and I was like, "Oh, that's perfect. I'm gonna try on a new camera, and that will kill time." So I rented the Sigma FP because I was very curious to know what was about this camera. As we know, we watch a lot of reviews, and
too many reviews.
There were not a lot of way too many, and I keep saying that I finished YouTube, but I keep finding stuff. So,
and here we are making more stuff. So.
Yeah. But there is not at least at the time, there were not a lot of information, but I think still now, every once in a while, something popping. But I feel like people just ignore this camera. So I was just curious to see what it was, because it's very capable. It can shoot 12-bit 4K cinema DNG. Internally through an SSD, but still. Like without a recorder, and it's such a small camera, full frame.
I mean, on paper, it seems like the perfect camera. Like on paper, it all adds up.
Yeah, honestly, and in a lot of situations, I could see that that could be the perfect camera for certain persons, or as a B cam for a small production like us. So. Got the camera, and from there I started to think about a small. I always wanted to shoot a 1 minute short film. I've never done it before. I was very interested if I could put up a story in 1 minute. I don't know if you ever watch these short films. They are awesome. Some people are very incredible, very talented at writing stories, such short stories. So I was just up for the challenge. And basically, like, everybody started to launch their online film festival, and with the whole COVID-19 situation, and some of them was a 1 minute short, so it was like perfect.
Yeah.
And I already had a good idea of my scenarios, which mostly was based on the reality of, I don't know, like, without going that dark, but I definitely found myself multiple times. I don't know if you felt that too, but mostly at the beginning, where it was like Groundhog Day. It's like the days repeat themselves so much.
Yeah.
And I found myself multiple times looking forward a certain routine, like, oh, I know that at this hour I'm gonna do this, and then I don't know, at 8 I'm gonna have dinner, at 10 I'm in bed, and kind of like having those moments to look forward to, and
For
you go
me,
to
it's
bed
coffee.
and
It's like
repeat.
coffee in the morning. That is like the
Yeah.
treat of the day, because there's just not that much. It's like go to work, get off work. I mean, hopefully, I'm working on personal projects and kind of figuring things out, but there's not a lot you can really put into practice, like the rubber hitting the road, or really getting to fully dive into something. It's so much more constrained. So I mean, I totally feel you on that.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So yeah, that inspired my little story,
Mm-hmm.
and from there I remember the cartoon when I was kid of, that drop, that faucet that can't stop dropping the water, and it's just so annoying that the character can fall asleep. And I kind of mash up everything, and I try to make. I think I packed a little too much because I was curious to really try certain situation with this camera. And I work basically the other way around. Like usually you make your story for the story, but in this situation I had a bunch of criteria that I wanted to put the camera in practice, and so I worked around these. So for example, I wanted the angle from the sink.
I love that angle.
I wanted to use.
Totally jumped out at me. So that I'm glad. I loved that angle. I was like, oh, like the ultra wide. I don't know what you shot that on, but I loved that shot.
So are you talking the one from below, right? Where Jen is looking.
Actually, not that one. It was the ultra wide in your basement that was speaking to me.
Crap,
no, I mean that one's cool, but it's one of those ones that I feel like is really challenging to execute. But as a viewer, it just seems so natural. But that's a good thing. Like you don't notice the try hard aspect of it, but actually to get that angle when you're producing it is actually quite a technical achievement, right?
Yeah, and really it was just to amplify the feeling of sickness and boredom. I wanted those like raccoon eyes on Jen.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted those like, hard shadows on the face, like you're tired. And I mean, shooting from below, that's the worst perspective for face. So that's what I wanted. And totally. We have a very small bathroom, and I wanted to put that. So that particular shot, the one you didn't ask for, I'm still going to tell you. I put a pancake lens on the Sigma. So I had the Sigma with the FP with the EF adapter. So I used, beside that, so for those small shots, I use the pancake lens, but everything else I shot with the Sigma 24-70.
That's a big lens. Stabilized.
It's a big lens, and that's definitely one of the problem of this camera is having a full frame in such a small body. Is that if you want to use the compact aspect of the camera, automatically if you put good glass in front of it, it just counterbalance. It defies the purpose automatically. You have all the weight in front, it's very front heavy, and obviously lenses are big in full frame. So that's one of the weird thing about this camera.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the
shot you were talking about.
I feel like no, that's okay. I feel like just to talk about the size of it, I wonder how much of a benefit that really is for like in what use case is that a nice thing? I mean, in photography certainly, a small body is appreciated, and you could mount it in certain places or use it in places that you might not be able to get a standard full frame camera. But I wonder about the actual utility of that small body, because the actual handling of it, unless you're shooting with they have the 45 millimeter lens that they developed that launched with this camera, and that makes sense for certain use cases. But there's not a lot of other glass.
No, there's not a lot, but I definitely can see and use as a crash cam for narrative. That's for sure. I mean, think about it. It's the size of a Sony A6500 or like that series of APS-C small cameras, and it shoots cinema DNG. I mean, of course, there is other brands too, like the Ecamm and all Easy Cam and like things like that. Now the Red Komodo is coming, but it's still, I feel like it's still even smaller. So if space is a problem, one of the shot I shot, I wanted to see behind the laundry machine, and the space is about maybe 10-inch from the wall, and so I wanted to shoot above. Like, you're not gonna put a big rig there. It's impossible. I don't know. Like, if you shoot, I could see tons of application. A car scene, like anything in a closet, in like any tight space. Even if you have a big lens in front, it would still be the smallest setup that you could have if you're shooting. If you're shooting a film, or as a cam, I feel like there's a lot of stuff to work around to make it work, to make it an A cam. But I feel like B cam, I think it's a great choice. I think the color science is average, which makes it pretty easy to match with anything else too. By itself, it's a little boring, but it doesn't have any like major shift toward one color or another. It's pretty it's pretty accurate. It's just a little flat.
Yeah, I mean, I love the look that you were able to achieve with the with the final product of Trapped. I think it looks awesome.
Yeah. It was. I had to make a lot of tests first to understand a little bit how the image were going, because there's a few things. So up front, there is not a lot of dynamic range. There is maybe with the standard profile, there is no log profile on the camera for now. They're gonna add it later, but for now it's only like standard, and then you have a few creative ones like sepia or whatever. And thing that no one uses. Or it's like there is one like super saturated.
Is there like a sepia film challenge where you have to shoot in the that's like another film festival challenge?
Yeah, probably.
Like the native profile film challenge?
Yeah, totally. So but the thing, if you shoot raw, you can when you color grade in Resolve, you can use the Blackmagic color space, which is great because you can recover some dynamic range, and you can recover your highlights with the little highlight recovery tool. Yeah. It's like a box you check, so you can use that. So yeah, you can apply the color the color profile and the gamma of Blackmagic, which makes it more. So once you do that, and you understand also that there is more dynamic range in the shadows, except that you can't see it, but it's there. So one thing plus another, I found that you could easily get 12 stops, which is not too bad for the price of the camera and everything. Then you gotta really make it work. You gotta denoise a lot. You gotta really expose properly. If you blow your highlight, it's more difficult. You have more room in the shadows. So yeah, once I did all the tests, I figured how I was gonna expose, and I think I got a pretty good result. I was happy with it.
No, I mean, I think it's awesome. The shot that I was talking about is actually at 47 seconds. It's the shot where you actually see the sink for the first time, and you can also see Jen walking down the stairs. And it is this distorted. I mean, it's setting up kind of like the antagonist of the film, right? And I just thought that shot was really cool because you kind of see this, like, it's the grossness of the sink is really exaggerated because it's kind of in the corner of the frame there. Yep. And the lighting there. Did you light this scene, or is this natural light?
Well, a little bit of both. It's actually just behind me in the back. And there is, I don't know if you can see, but there is like a little window. It's in the basement. Okay. So I blocked part of the window, and then I put a small LED on the top just to add a little bit of light on the sink, just a little bit. And then I add a slider to get the the zoom in, as she was going downstairs, and I blast a lot of haze too. Couldn't breathe, but looks good.
No, it looks great. I think the haze mixed with the Black Pro mist filter. I mean, I know you use that, and I feel like those two, in combination with just a little bit of lighting, like that little hint of a little bit of lighting that you've got makes for a very, like, it matches the scene perfectly.
Yeah, but for the most part, it was natural light. Just a few shots where I added just a little bit to balance my shot. But
nice. So review of the Sigma FP. I mean, I know this isn't a review, but would be nice if you can work with it, and you kind of have to know that you can work with it to know. Like, I mean, everybody's situation's nice for certain situations, I guess is what I'm hearing.
I was really trying to convince myself that I needed one, and you know how hard you can you can go that way when you're trying to fool yourself because you think you need a piece of equipment. Pretty good at that. I have to admit that I don't think it's the perfect B cam for me, but if money wasn't an option, I would have one for sure. There is a few situations where I can see that this is the king. It's a pretty good, I don't know, like, I feel like I haven't found one thing where it's really like the best camera for its use. It's more that it's very good at a few things. For stills, same thing. Dynamic range, it's not. It's good. It's good. Definitely better than digital cameras we made work 5 or 10 years ago. We become very picky with everything, but it's very capable. It's just that there is other cameras that seems to be more capable. To me, as a general rule, it's hard to go for Bcam. It's hard to go with anything else than Canon, just because when I'm actually working, I don't want to spend too much time matching the cameras, and I'm not very good at it. So, as a general rule, even if there is a better camera technically, just having the same color profile and everything, it's easier. So I had the EOS R just before. And clearly the Sigma FP is way better in many points of the EOS R, but it's still lacking a few things. It built like a tank. It's a little black box. It's super it's solid. You can tell that it's reliable. There is no tilt screen or anything, so you can see that you could probably really crash it and it would survive. It is just that, it doesn't have, it's really raw. There is no viewfinder. There's nothing. The screen is pretty bright, but obviously you need a monitor. It's not a full-size HDMI, so, like, you get into those problems. You get a lot of, to make it work, you got to plug a lot of stuff to it. So you got to rig it, and then you fall into the whole thing, where once you rig it up and you spend so much money by rigging it up and so much time by trying to make it work, that is like you get a C200 or something like that on FS5 or FS7 for the same price, and it just works. So, that kind of stuff. It is great that it does both photography and video. Time-lapse are great. The time-lapse functions are pretty straightforward. So for that kind of application, for what you want to do, like doing it outdoor and everything, it's lacking stabilization. There is, they plan on doing like electronic stabilization, so not that by the sensor, but I forgot how they do that, but kind of like Canon does. But for now, for some reason, it's not working. I forget exactly the reasons, the combinations. There is no log profile in video, so if you want to work with it, as soon as you start shooting for a little long, it becomes like massive files that sure you can convert in ProRes and everything, but again, like you spend a lot of time trying to make it work.
It sounds like every camera has this to an extent, but it kind of sounds like no matter, like, all of the the pros have this fairly big asterisk next to them. And that's true of, like I said, all cameras. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema or 6K or 4K, it's like, battery life or the handling or the screen, but these asterisks sound a little more pronounced, especially compared to what you're getting with other cameras on the market. So I mean, for me, I was interested in it in the beginning, mostly because of its, I liked the modularity of it. I love that idea. Not so sure that actually works all that well in practice, because then you have to have the modularity can get in your way if you're just trying to get something done. Whereas, like you're saying, with the C300 or the Sony or other, high-end competitors, or on the lower end, GH5 or something like that, it's all built in and you don't really have to mess with too much. And at the end of the day, that's what I actually use. Even if I think that I want the thing that I can turn into anything, it's more like I'll take certain compromises if it does certain things really well and I know I can rely on it for that. So that's certainly what turns me off of it. And also that I find myself just really relying on in other cameras.
No, totally. I think it's if money is not a question, I think it's a great camera to just to practice at a very high level your cinematography, your photography. If you have a very minimal approach, it is you kind of get like the same feeling that you get when you're shooting with the Leica, for example. When you're shooting photography with the Leica, there is 1,000 better cameras technically. There is something working with the simplicity, the minimalism of a Leica camera that just seduce so many people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's what you need to create. That depends on the people too. Some people get overwhelmed with too many buttons and functions and possibilities, where they appreciate one way to shoot, one codec, they know it, one lens, one focal. So I think it depends more on those things, but I feel like even if because I really try to defend them because I really like this camera, I really try to give them credit, and I shot my short film with it.
And it looks great. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like it. Yeah, definitely. And I found in many ways that because you're working cinema DNG, there's no compression at all. When you work the files, and if you have the time to manipulate them, it's far better than a lot of very much more expensive cameras. But most of the time, compression is what you want because you want a quick turnaround, and so the image quality is kind of like what you sacrifice, or like you get
or flexibility in post.
A compromise. Yeah, exactly. But for someone that wants to learn, for someone that does like very low to zero budget indie films, like for all those reasons, I feel like it's a very cool camera.
Nice.
If only had just, I would say, a little better stabilization, because it's so small that it needs to be stabilized. Although if you have a stabilized lens, it helps a lot, but then you have like a super bulky lens. So we circle back to the whole size and
is that an advantage or not? Yeah. Well, speaking of if money was no object, let's jump into the news segment. We've got a potential price for the Canon EOS R5, which for a while has been the only thing that the film industry can talk about. Did you take a look at this article and see the price tag?
Yeah, I did. Isn't he around? I forgot. Wasn't it like 6 or 7K?
Yeah. So it's coming in. I mean, this is a rumor. We're looking at this from Tech Radar, and the rumored price is $6,800 US. This was from an Australian website. So they had the price in Australian dollars at 10,500. Right. So 6,800 US, 5,500 pounds. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it's an incredible camera that is doing things that almost, very few other cameras can do, like 8K without a crop factor and good burst speeds and an incredible dual, like an incredible hybrid camera. But what do you think? I mean, coming from a production company, does the R5 at that price get a home in your camera bag, or?
I feel like, I mean, I had a 1DX Mark II at the time, which was about the same price.
It's kind of that high-end DSLR category that they've
camera.
created. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like the main problem for me for that type of camera is the recording limit. I feel like as much money you put in the camera as much hat it has to be, for someone like me, much hat it has to be capable of wearing. So I want to be able to shoot my normal production. So if I do a corporate interview or something like that, I want to be, I don't want to deal with a recording limit, even if I'm never going to hit it. Just having the thoughts in mind that you have to keep an eye on it. And also it's just not professional. As soon as you pass 30 minutes, you can't just ask the talent to stop
when you're on a
talking.
professional job, it's really hard to explain that you can't just roll. I mean, it's just in any circumstance like that I've been on, that would have been, you just can't say that. So it would have to be a kind of production where you're in control of everything, because it's when you're shooting for a client and it's just like, we just need this over here, or whatever it is. When you're getting paid to show up and be able to produce something, it's kind of hard to say that you can't do that, or stop. Can you start over? Like when you're rolling, that's so hard to do.
Yeah. That being said, if you don't need, if you're in a situation where you don't need to roll for too long at the time, basically anything else than documentary, then it's probably going to be a very cool camera.
Right.
Because if you do music video, if you do, narrative, if you do, indie films in general, if you do, even weddings, ceremony can be long. It's not unusual that a ceremony goes for 45 minutes. Although most of the time you shoot multicam a ceremony on weddings. If you are if you're at a level where you put $6 or $7 in your camera,
you're probably gonna have more than one.
Probably.
Yeah.
And there is so many, even a GH5 is still better suited to these days for that kind of job, just because it works and it looks good enough for the client's expectations. So I don't know. To me, I would have a hard time justifying to put so much money. I would rather, if I had $6 or $7, I would rather sell my C300 and reinvest everything in something bigger.
Yeah.
Rather than getting an R5. That being said, as a B cam, I feel a lot of people are gonna love that camera. And I don't know, there is a lot of application where it's gonna be popular, I feel like.
Yeah, it's an interesting market that it's entering into with the S1H existing, and also the Komodo and all, Canon's own cinema line. I feel like it's going to be really popular amongst YouTubers, assuming that it can do the things that it's rumored to do, where maybe, an external recorder for a YouTuber is not a problem if they even need to record for more than 30 minutes, which is probably not most of them. This is like high-end YouTubers who are, the MKBHDs of the world, maybe as a B cam, or Peter McKinnon, he's totally going to have one of these. You got to get that spicy B-roll, right? In an 8K, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
And
the need of 8K is it's a different topic, but
I can't imagine working with 8K footage. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Unless you work, I feel like if you're in the market that requires 8K, it's not an R5 that you're going to pick.
Yep. Yeah.
You're on a budget level and on, again, like clients' expectations, and the R5 is not going to do the job.
Unless it's a B or C or D cam or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. There is also a lot of people that do both videography and photography.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there is still a need for a camera that do a great job at both. It's probably just a niche, but I feel like there is a lot of people that still do both, that make a living doing both. So that could be one too, because when you think about it, if you, beside the fact that having just one system would simplify so much for those people, also the cost. If you want a good photography camera and a good video camera, it's expensive. So automatically, like someone that is shooting, I don't know, with a, I'm gonna say whatever, but let's say 5D Mark IV or an EOS R for photography and has a C200 for his video work, can definitely, if he doesn't need two cam, it would probably be just fine with R5 or something similar like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're replacing two bodies with one, and it's, you know, well, $7,000, even so, that's a pretty compelling, you know, product at that point, since it's truly capable of professional output in both regards. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm glad to see them pushing the market. Mostly what I'm glad about is Canon seemingly, we'll see what happens, but Canon seemingly taking off the asterisks that they always put on their products, which is, oh, it's an amazing, I mean, the R, you know, it's an amazing camera, but it shoots in a pretty extreme crop factor in 4K, and it only shoots 8-bit. You know, Canon is notorious for always having kind of little asterisks that keep it from competing with their professional cameras, or just brain dead things where you just have to accept that that's kind of how Canon works. And I feel like this is them understanding that the marketplace is a little hotter right now, and that they need to kind of come in swinging, or they're going to lose all of the, I mean, they've lost a lot to Sony already, and now Panasonic is taking a pretty good swing at them with the S1H in professional video and photo production with the S1R and the S1H and S1. Hopefully this is them understanding that they need to just make a complete product, that they're not hampering in some ways.
I feel it's going to be a catch at some point.
There will be we'll see the catch.
Yeah, we don't have all the information yet, but I'm sure it's going to be something.
Well, let's we're coming up on an hour here, so let's go through a couple of these other news items. The Red Komodo. Tell me about the Red Komodo, because I haven't actually followed this camera. I feel like you've been following it a little more closely. We've got a potential price of around $7,000, so right at, or $6,000 for the regular black version.
Yeah, you can get it for $6,000 in black and $7,000 in white or whatever color of your choice. That's something.
Someone's gonna do it.
I mean, I don't know much, but what I know is that was their attempt to compete with all those new players like EasyCam, even like the Pocket 4K 6K, Kinfinity, although it's not very present in the US yet, but I for what I know, they have great cameras too.
I hear good things.
Yeah. So the Komodo was their, I mean, it's supposed to be their offer with like no proprietary media and anything. So you can, so it's supposed to have a slot for the BPA batteries, the Canon, the big Canon batteries. You can record to an external SSD, and it's a small box in RF mount. So you can use.
That's so interesting that a cinema camera, quote unquote, is using. This is the first camera outside of Canon's own R line of cameras that will be using the RF mount.
Yep. Yeah, and they don't even use it on their own cinema cameras, the new ones. The RF is neither on the C500 Mark II or the C300 Mark III. So yeah, it's very interesting. But for this camera, at least, you have the option to put an ND filter with the Canon adapter that has the built-in ND filters. I don't know. I mean, on paper, it sounds very sexy. That being said, and you can shoot Red RAW, which is pretty good. It's definitely one of the best RAW codec. I don't know, but I don't know. It sounds to be like a lot of hype. Still haven't really seen any, that much footage from it. If you watch SNL, they since they are doing it from home, the little segment with Brad Pitt from 2 or 3 weeks ago was filmed with the Komodo, but I don't think I don't
Interesting.
think it's a good reference. It's a talking head.
It's kind of hard to tell anything from
flat
that.
background.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the best way to show off the capability of the camera. There is also a skateboarding video I just heard of that I wanted to watch to see what it is about. I don't know. I don't think it's a direction that I'm gonna take. I think it's a camera that is probably gonna be that people are gonna be interested for, like BC, DCam, and for someone that already shoot RED, and for the people that always wanted a RED and finally can afford one. Because you can buy one, but you're really gonna suck rocks for a while.
Yeah, I was kind of down on RED for a while because I just, I kind of always saw it, for a while there was a time where I saw it as the ultimate camera, and then I started to get more into things and I kind of saw ARRI, and I definitely like the general image quality that ARRI is going for as opposed to RED. Just a little bit more filmic, a little less punchy and contrasty. And then I also know that RED does the crazy things with their like mags, and the ecosystem is really expensive to buy into. I heard one of the best pros for the RED, which is shooting RAW, when you need this was a live, he was shooting live events, and shooting 8K RAW was essential to them because they were shooting in crazy conditions and they needed the flexibility in post to be able to get the image quality that they needed to deliver to, top end clients like Netflix and whatnot. So in those circumstances, totally makes sense. And this is just more options that live within that ecosystem, or exactly, for the person who is just going to plunk down the, biggest chunk of cash to shoot a RED. And it's not so much that they're doing it to shoot RED, not for other things, which I understand. Definitely. There's sexiness in that for sure.
No, totally. I think there's still, I think there would still be a camera I would consider for shooting product, for shooting any type of like very detailed things, like not people, but things, and very staged, very controlled environment. And also, I feel when you want the best image in a compact setup, they are still kind of like the best choice. I'm thinking all extreme sports, all like this type of work. If you have the budget and you really want the best image, you still better suited. Like most of their camera, they can fit in a backpack, so you can totally travel around almost like run and gun, and do very, very high level image with it.
Yeah, things that you would never even consider in ARRI, and you'd probably be looking at like a Canon something line, C500, C300, and which is a great, certainly capable, but not capable of the things that the Reds are capable of in terms of resolution.
Yeah, and you
RAW.
still have also, definitely. And you also, sorry, there is also still there is price. There is cameras at all prices in RED, but some of them are still like they found their place kind of like in the middle between like a Canon or Sony cinema camera or Blackmagic and an ARRI, that if you want to own, if you want to buy an Alexa Mini, it's not going to cost you the same than an entry level RED. So I feel like they still have their place in the market, but I agree with you. I would probably more dream about an ARRI, any of the ARRI camera, even an Alexa Classic. I'll take it over RED. But I feel like there is still situations where RED makes sense. I feel like.
Yeah, nice, cool. And then I see you included some the Teradek cube and the Oricon production protocols here. Tell me about these two things.
Well, Teradek is launching some products that allow us, to simplify it, to allow us to stream the video feed to a secure portal and to whoever needs it, which tells a lot, I think, about the future of production, especially when we talk about higher level. It's probably not going to change a lot for us, but at least yet. But although I could see that in the near future, because more and more clients want control on everything. They want their eyes on everything, and I could see that more and more we're going to be able to set people from home if they are not physically required on set. And I think it tells a lot about future of production, the workflow of production. I think it's going to take a while until it gets to a small to no crew environment, but it's for sure already going to be the case for medium size to large size production, because you basically, I think you can, I forgot for how many people you can stream in the same time, but the connection is secured. So if whatever you're filming is, you don't want it to put it out there, it's safe. But you also have the ability to do live stream. They are kind of like trying to be I feel like a one-stop shop for live streaming services in general, and also to help to justify the price of the equipment. But I think it's interesting because with all the new protocol that they released to work production under the threat of COVID-19, obviously, right, we have to use hand sanitizer, gloves, mask, visors if possible, stay 6 feet apart. As soon as you put people on set, staying 6 feet apart from each other is going to be more and more difficult. So if you have an alternative that is solid enough, where the person that is just here to do a quality check can do it from a monitor in a home office, it's same thing than any business that sets their employees from home, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Oh, I'm looking at the backpack. Did you look at this? It's incredible. So it's a gold mount, or you can choose between gold mount and V mount, and it's a backpack solution that has an encoder. So this is for broadcast. Broadcast.
You almost look like a terrorist.
Yeah, you put on a backpack, you have your camera plugged in, I assume, over like Ethernet or something like that, or I guess SDI or Ethernet. And then you can just run it into the backpack, and the backpack has LTE modems. So you can just walk around with this and you can be broadcasting from your Red Komodo.
Yep, you can vlog live if you want.
I just can't wait till the first Twitch streamer gets a hold of this and has some ridiculous setup. No, more seriously, I can totally see a ton of applications for this, and I just wonder how when does production, is there a normal that we get back to as production crews, or is it going to be like forever changed? Theoretically there will be some sort of vaccination or something against COVID-19, but does it completely change the landscape forever? And are all sets going to be different? Obviously nobody knows the answer to that, but I'm curious because, like you were saying, there's no set in which you have to stay 6 feet apart from everybody. The camera, you can't even just run a camera like that on a high-end production. If you're a few people, then small scale is a different story, but for the big stuff, that just doesn't happen.
And it's already it's already a reality. I already heard a few stories, and myself, I was asked to go on a job where the producer would ask the questions. So in a documentary interview, where the producer would ask the question, would be through Skype, and instead of being physically there to interview the talent. So it's already the reality of production. Yeah, and it's like you say, I don't know for how long it's going to be, but there is a good chance that it's going to stick for a while.
Yeah.
So I think it's just coming from a company like Teradek, it says a lot.
Yeah.
If it was if it was a new startup launching a new solution, that would be different. But someone that is already well established in the business, um, going a different direction like that, pivoting into a different segment, that tells a lot, yeah, about the future of all jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
The way we work, for sure.
Yeah, and then we've got this OMPA production guidelines about the same topic about being able to get back to work. So it looks like they've got guidelines. These are not enforced, as far as I know, in any stringent way.
They're a recommendation, and yeah, and it's probably going to be the new norm for a minute.
Yeah, it was. I mean, a lot of it just seems to make sense. Make common sense of symptoms and social distancing and whatnot, and kind of necessitate small scale productions. I know just from some conversations that I've been in that this is kind of changing the concepts that people are shooting these days, because we are going to be shooting more work. That companies need to be able to do this. Organizations need to be able to get their message out. But changing the pitches, so, I know a lot more animation, shooting things outside, coming up with ways where you can have less people on set, or you're kind of rotating who's on set and minimizing the impact of that. So I think, in some ways it's going to be creative, because I think people are going to, obviously this is not a good thing, but I do think there's a silver lining of people getting creative in the kinds of things that we will start to be able to do once we're out of like hardcore lockdown mode.
Yeah, no, totally. It's just that, exactly. It's just that it's going to open up new skills. It's going to require us to adapt to those new workflow and new working conditions. But yeah, they're already talking about new crew positions in production. So like someone in charge of putting all the supplies and controlling that everybody's doing like masks and all the things, gloves and everything, things like that. But that's just natural of like any jobs is that way. It's never the same way to work forever. There is always changes that we have to adapt and everything, but it just it puts things in perspective to see that there is rules like that and new devices, new solutions.
Yeah, and I think for me just personally, one of the most interesting things to see from this has been, for a while, I feel like we were kind of all in the same boat, or we were experiencing it differently, but we all had the general conditions where we were more or less locked down at home. But now, as we start to loosen those things up, it's becoming so different depending on where you are, who you are, what your job is. And I'm just interested to see kind of like how, from like a sociological perspective, how people take that on. And certainly to your point, I think the more adaptable that you can be, the more solution oriented you can be, the more likely it is not to negatively impact your work, but actually, for some people, it's going to be opportunities like Teradek, but also if you can get creative with how you're overcoming these challenges that are going to be the case for probably the next year or so, at least. Nice. Well, let's end with some recommendations. I'm going to start with my headphones that I've been using, because they're a freaking lifesaver. These are the Sony, this is the worst name in the world, but the Sony WH-1000XM2. So these are a generation old. I hear rumors about a generation 4 coming out pretty soon, so I may upgrade to that one. But this is a general plug for noise canceling headphones, because as we're all at home more, we're around more noise. Our neighbors are probably home more. Maybe you have kids and the kids are around. This is just a shout out for the incredible peace of mind that a pair of noise canceling headphones can provide. And also for me, working in the podcast industry, doing my work, this is essential. And I recently tried the Surface Headphones 2, so those just came out, and they're actually $100 cheaper than the Sony, the current generation of Sony. But the Sony class of the noise canceling is just a notch above, and same with audio quality and fit. You don't feel them on your head. And when you're working for 8 hours a day with headphones on, that kind of starts to make a big difference. But the other part of this is that I got these on eBay for $160 about a year ago, which is half off. And there's not a substantial difference between these and the current ones that retail for $350. So this is just a general tip to check eBay. Because you can find refurbished things. These were refurbished model, and I got them for half off. And so I got, the nicest pair of headphones. The biggest detractor from the Series 2 to the Series 3 is the fact that they're not USB-C, but they have 30-hour battery life. So I really don't have to think about charging very much. It's like I get through a full week without even thinking about it, because they're also plugged in. And so they're, plugged in when I'm doing work at least. So they're not consuming the Bluetooth energy. So, first of all, noise canceling headphones, they're the best. And second of all, check out eBay and see if there's a refurb or whatever you're buying. See if there's a way to maybe save a little bit in getting the last version. Same with camera stuff. I mean, if you want to save a bunch of money, go get the whatever version of the latest camera, the version prior to it, because it's probably amazing. And you can usually make it, like I just got the G9 for $900, the Panasonic G9 for $900, and it's like, that camera is incredible. Nobody can fault the image that's coming out of that. So that's my recommendation. Anyway, what about you, Mike?
That is a great question. What is my recommendation? I didn't think about that. Well, I'm gonna go. I mean, it's not a. It's something people know, but I just got some Quasar tubes, bicolor ones. Actually, I got a great price on it because they were half off on Adorama. So I don't know if it's still the case. Maybe it's a good tip. And I got 6 of them, and they're incredibly versatile. The quality is amazing. I got the 4-foot ones. I have one as a kicker in the back here. But they are incredibly bright. They are dimmable. They just require a little bit of work to either you spend a little bit more money and you get different brackets, or you can make them yourself. There is tons of tutorials. And they're great. I got them to do mostly product videos, but I found out that I can actually very easily use them as a 3-point light kit for interviews and things like that. All combined together, they compete with the sun. It's incredible. They decrease a little bit when you go on the hot side. If on the warmer side, they decrease in output, but they are still very good, and they go down to 2000K, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So almost orange, and almost blue on the other side too. So yeah, I think that's gonna be my recommendation.
I love it. Yeah, I recently saw a tweet. I forget who this was, but they said that if you are looking at buying a new camera and you haven't invested in a lighting kit, invest in the lights. It's not a sexy purchase, but sure. I mean, as you can tell right now, my image is falling apart because there's no lighting in my room. I'm using a webcam. Or at least people watching on the live stream can. But certainly,
I mean, unless you rent every time you need. But yeah, owning light is definitely a good way to practice again.
And this would be,
a little bit of space.
What's the minimum that you could use for that 3-point lighting kit from the Quasars? How many lights would you need? Just 3, or are you stacking them?
I think you could do 4. Well, yeah, you could do 4. You could do 2 for the key, 1 for the fill, 1 for the kicker, or 1 for the kicker. I never put a light for the fill. I don't like it. I rather want to get a piece of reflection. or even negative field sometimes if I want to be really dark.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still use the first one for your ambient light, or yeah, I did some tests with just 4 of them, and I had incredible results. They are very, very bright.
Nice. No, I think that's a great recommendation. I've even been
So that's
considering them for my apartment, where I just want to throw a light in the corner over here for while I'm working, because
yep.
they're a really nice quality light, and I'm someone who's really sensitive to light, and when it's cloudy in Portland, there's not a lot of natural light coming in, and just having that makes such a big difference in my subconscious. So if I can figure out a way to mount them in a more permanent situation, but then be able to take them off and shoot when I need to shoot, like light something, they're kind of they're so adaptable that it makes it not a scary investment, because you can do so many different things with them.
Yeah, and I feel like you have better possibility of getting really creative lighting. If you want to go off the traditional way to lit things, you have better options just because of the shape of the tube. If you want really like sharp edges, like if you want like really like a long light, long and thin light, obviously because it's a tube, but still, I feel like for the price, because 8 of them, that was just under $900. Sorry, not 8. Wait, how many?
How much money did I spend?
Right, no, 6. So that was just under 700.
Nice.
So for the output that you get and the quality, because there is cheap lights out there too, but I feel like for the price, it's hard to beat.
Yeah, no, nothing I think competes with the flexibility that you get for that price. I mean, they're just so adaptable, and they're top end. Obviously, they're more expensive lights that you can get, but they're certainly used in all levels of production. So.
Yeah, and I would say also the advantage is if you do interviews or if you lit tight space, because they're already pretty soft compared to a monolight or something like that. They are easier to fit in like tight space and things like that. Even if you do like a key lighting, I found that in about 1 foot, I can have the tubes and the piece of diffusion, and I get a very soft key light. That's not a lot of space.
Yeah, no, that's
sometimes when you shoot interview, you're in like very tight offices or houses, living room and stuff like that,
and you don't have a lot of options.
You don't have a lot of options.
Nice. Well, Mike, episode 0 in the can.
That was lovely.
Awesome. Okay, we'll call it a wrap on that, but thanks for tuning in, listeners. And
anybody watch it. Thank you.
Thanks for witnessing the birth of a very auspicious beginning.
Yep, exactly. Well,
all right, I'm going to end.